We now open part one, the speakers segment. We regret that there is no available resource speaker from the Climate Change Commission to give the historical background of the UNFCCC, highlights of the past COPs or Conference of Partners, and a peek into the Philippine National Adaptation Plan. This was our intention. It was intended to familiarize our participants with the decades-old global climate talk so we could all start from the same page. Actually, medyo nakakahilo if you start from different parts of it. No? So fortunately, Miss Vicky Segovia, our president, provided us the basics in her opening remarks. So our next speakers can pick it up from there and we can happily proceed. David, would you please do the honors of introducing our first speaker?
Let's introduce our first speaker. He is a senior government technical expert in environmental protection and management, particularly in climate change adaptation and mitigation, clean development mechanism, solid waste management, and environmental impact assessment with more than 20 years experience in policy formulation, standard setting, and guidelines program preparation for national implementation. He heads the Climate Change Office of the Environmental Management Bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. He participates in climate change negotiations and a regular member of the Philippine delegation to the UNFCCC Conference of Parties, COP-CMP. Unfortunately, today we will be delivering. He will be delivering a recorded message. The message is pre-recorded, since our speaker is traveling at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to talk about the government perspective on the results of COP29, Chief Environmental Management Specialist for the Climate Change Service of the DENR, Sir Albert Magalang.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before anything else, I would like to thank the Green Convergence for safe food, healthy environment, and sustainable economy for organizing once again this monthly Kamayan para sa kalikasan. So I'm happy to be one of the speakers for this webinar, and excuse me, I'd like to share my presentation this afternoon on the Philippines perspective on the outcomes of COP29. So I'll be sharing some few slides on this, if I may have. Okay. Okay, I hope that you can see my slides. Okay, so let me start my presentation with some of the key takeaways from COP29 as part of the Philippine delegation that participated in the negotiations at COP29. So I have just selected a few of the topics or the work streams that the Philippine delegation has participated, has negotiated. So this work streams are related to the climate finance target, the Article 6 or the architecture for carbon markets, the NDCs, the mitigation work program, adaptation, and the global staff day. So so far, as regards to to finance, countries would say that at COP29 we were able to set a new global climate finance target, which to some of us would refer this as a new era for climate finance. So at COP29, countries faced the critical task of setting a new global climate finance target for 2025 and beyond. That would also build on the previous 100 billion per year commitment. Vulnerable countries like the Philippines pushed for concrete assurance regarding loss and damage mechanisms to ensure the necessary financial support that should be delivered. So we were also expecting that contributors or the support coming from mostly developed countries would ensure that the financial support be translated into tangible impacts and also mobilize substantial private sector investment. So, as a developing country, we welcome the agreement by parties on the new collective quantified goal for climate finance to support developing countries in that which will come in two parts. The the first part is amounting to 1.3 trillion per year to be enabled by all actors, and the second part would be amounting to 300 billion US dollars for developed countries to take the lead on delivering. So both targets can met and should be met through public and private sources. But while they represent significantly more than the goals of, as previously set, these are the past goals. This target would still fall short of the financial needs of vulnerable nations like the Philippines. On Article 6, on establishing a global architecture for carbon markets, for international trade of mitigation outcomes, at COP29 clarified how countries will authorize carbon credit transactions and manage tracking registries. Additionally, it established mechanisms to ensure environmental integrity through upfront technical reviews in a transparent process. So the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism now includes mandatory safeguards to protect the environment and human rights. So these safeguards ensure projects which cannot proceed without the informed consent of indigenous peoples, for one. So the supervisory body responsible for overseeing the mechanism has a comprehensive action plan for 2025. So this progress in Article 6 negotiations achieved at COP29 will be crucial for creating functional carbon markets, which are essential for meeting the Paris Agreement reduction targets and mobilizing the much needed finance. As regards to the NDCs, which we would refer as that we expect to be ambitious and investable NDCs, country parties were able to faced some mounting pressure in raising their ambition and also established expectations for the next cycle of the national climate plans or the NDCs, with the deadline for submitting updated nationally determined contributions in 2025. Parties were encouraged to update their climate commitments to be more ambitious, investable, and equitable as part of the 5-year update cycle. So this phase requires higher emissions reduction as well as avoidance targets and key outcomes from past COPs, such as commitments to phase out fossil fuels and triple renewable energy capacity by 2030. Delivering on this is critical in order to maintain the momentum needed to meet global climate goals. And I also would like, related to the NDCs, is the mitigation work program, which parties have expected to accelerate mitigation action. So the mitigation work program, or the MWP, which was established at COP26, received renewed attention at COP29. Delegates agreed to expand efforts to enhance renewable energy deployment and phase down unabated fossil fuel use. So, however, progress has been limited to workshops and discussions. So, parties recalled that at COP 28 in Dubai, negotiations faltered over whether the work program should convey high-level political messages or remain strictly procedural. So this stalemate carried into the bond negotiations in June last year, June 2024, with disagreements centering on linking the work program to the global stocktake and its outcomes. So at COP29, these disputes persisted, particularly over including references to transitioning away from fossil fuels, but the final outcome did not make explicit reference to the transitioning away from fossil fuels. And on adaptation, which we expected to scale up resilience, this is one of the significant COP29 outcomes, as the discussions were related or were focused on the global goal for adaptation, or the GGA, and the national adaptation plans. But the progress was hindered by disagreements. So the UAA BLM work program, introduced at COP 28, aims to establish indicators for adaptation targets, including resilience in water ecosystems and cultural heritage. And as regards to the NAP discussions, which was initially slated in at COP, there were also some delays that were experienced because of extensive disagreements. So the roadmaps, adoption, and continued discussion on the GGA, or the global goal on adaptation, underscore adaptation's complexity and urgency as climate impacts intensify. So this coming COP 30, it is expected to revisit unresolved issues, including financial commitments and equitable adaptation frameworks. Okay. As regards to the global stocktake, which is also very important, as also been discussed in Dubai at COP 28, Um, at COP28, it was underscored, and I mean the role of the global static was was underscored as a key stakeholder in global climate action through the first ever global static that was undertaken in at COP28. So this assessment measured the world's progress towards the Paris Agreement goals, providing clear picture of where nations stand on mitigation, adaptation, and finance. At COP29, climate talks became contentious as nations coped up with commitments from the result of the global stocktaking at COP28. So the approach to discussions about fossil fuel transition started a debate. So the developed countries and the vulnerable countries demanded stronger commitments for transitioning away from fossil fuels, while some countries, of course, opposed the inclusion of a specific fossil fuel language, emphasizing the need for finance-focused discussion. So in the end, the dialogue was postponed until 2025, leaving most of the countries disappointed. However, COP30 in Brazil holds the potential for renewed momentum, especially in terms of um, accountability and climate action. So, as I would also like to mention about the remaining critical gaps. These are the four major gaps which I would like to share, like transitioning from fossil fuels, as countries would fail to agree on binding commitments to phase out fossil fuel subsidies. This issue remains one of the most significant barriers to decarbonization, as subsidies alter energy markets and slow the adoption of cleaner alternatives. So establishing clear timelines and mechanisms for subsidy elimination will be critical in 2025 to align energy markets with global decarbonization goals. There's also the gap on scaling climate finance, as besides the agreement on the new collective quantified goal on climate finance, the mechanisms for scaling and disbursing funds remain unclear, particularly for attracting private sector capital. And there's also the challenge of ensuring financial commitments that should be translated into project pipelines and real action on the ground. So without addressing these gaps on climate finance, the momentum for COP29 risks would lose steam before COP30. And also, the third bullet, the linkage between climate and nature is also important to us, as it was in COP28 in Dubai, where nature was a clear winner, as negotiations and outcomes referenced the importance of biodiversity and nature-based solutions for mitigation and adaptation. So during this year's proceedings, nature was less prominent, leaving it to COP30 to ramp up momentum and later and link biodiversity pathways with climate action. And of course, very important to look that countries should look into is on the energy targets starting from COP28. So with its strong mandate to translate this into detailed plans at national and sectoral levels, the forthcoming COPs need to work more closely and also to work closely with businesses, particularly from higher emitting sectors, and explain how governments interpret the triple renewable and also the doubling the energy efficiency targets from a national and sectoral perspectives. So that should allow businesses to develop their own detailed energy transition plans and seek market-based solutions in order to um, effect transition. So, in conclusion, um, COP29 outcomes in Baku delivered a mix of progress and challenges with significant advancements in climate finance, carbon markets, as I mentioned, and also some adaptation efforts. But the outcomes reflect a growing recognition of the need for collective action to address climate crisis. So the focus now shifts to implementing these agreements and also bridging gaps in ambition, in funding, and in delivery. As the world gears up and prepares for COP30, the lessons from Baku will serve as a critical foundation for driving forward the Paris Agreement goals. Thanks so much for your attention and a pleasant afternoon once again to all. Thank you for this opportunity.
This guy, and um, but it's hard to describe exactly uh, our gains and the gains, no? Kasi madaming reklamo pa din, no? But anyway, sayang kasi hindi makakapag-question. But I appreciate the fact that he accommodated our request kahit na busy-busy niya, he's traveling all over, Uh,
Ang dami ring loopholes no na diniscuss, so it's
totoo.
very concerning, especially in regards to connection of nature and climate change, which is
Yes.
very important.
And yung finance, yung finance kasi ah yung mga reklamo ng mga rich countries, hindi parang reklamo ng mga bilyonaryo na hindi nakakaranas nung nararanasan ng mga squatter. No, parang ganun. So, anyway, it's a matter of perspective. But so, to proceed, salamat, Albert. Baka makita mo
Safe
to.
trip, safe trip. Yeah.